Is the devil just a metaphor for the darkness in the human heart, or is he a physical presence walking among us? We've all seen the Hollywood versions, horns, pitchforks, and red skin, but what if the real thing is much more subtle, much more terrifying, and has already been caught on tape? Today we're looking at 10 documented cases where people claim to have looked into the eyes of the Prince of Darkness himself. From chilling doorbell camera footage in Texas that left the neighborhood in fear, to a 1980s possession case that changed the American legal system forever. These are 10 real encounters with the devil caught on camera. Imagine checking your Ring camera while out at dinner, only to find a figure in a goat mask standing at your door, holding a sign about the end of the world. In January 2025, a quiet neighborhood in Carrollton, Texas was rocked by a series of doorbell notifications that felt like a scene out of a horror movie. A homeowner who wishes to remain anonymous was alerted to movement on her porch. Expecting a delivery, she opened the app to see a tall figure draped in a black hoodie, topped with a hyper-realistic blood-red goat mask. What made this encounter truly demonic wasn't just the mask, it was the behavior. The figure stood perfectly still for several minutes, holding a large placard referencing Revelation 20. For those of you who don't know, that specific Bible passage describes the dragon, that ancient serpent who is the devil, and Satan being bound for 1,000 years before the final judgment. The figure didn't steal anything, they simply stared into the camera lens with a hollow gaze. Local police investigated the creepy solicitor, but the homeowner told news outlets that she felt that she was being targeted by something spiritually dark. The footage remains a viral reminder of how the devil can literally knock on your door in broad daylight. Most porch pirates take boxes away, but in Pennsylvania, a creature known as the box demon was caught on camera bringing something much stranger to the door. The term uncanny valley refers to things that look almost human, but just off enough to cause deep biological revulsion. That is exactly what residents in northern York County experienced in early 2025. CCTV and doorbell cameras captured a figure later dubbed the box demon creeping through yards with a bizarre, jerky, quadrupedal movement. The entity appeared to have elongated limbs and distorted facial features that didn't reflect light correctly on infrared sensors. It would approach porches and leave empty, ritualistically folded boxes. When the Northern York County Regional Police Department finally tracked the individual down, they noted that the person was experiencing a severe crisis, but the footage itself showing a hunched, devil-like silhouette skittering across lawns in the dead of night has become a staple in paranormal breakdowns. Experts point to the inhuman gait as a classic sign of what demonologists call mimicry, where a dark entity attempts to move like a person but fails to understand human physics. It is the only time in US history that demonic possession was used as a legal defense for taking a life, and the photos from the scene are still debated to this day. The case of Cheyenne Johnson, recently revisited in the 2023 documentary The Devil on Trial, is the real-life inspiration for The Conjuring 3. It began with 11-year-old David Glatzel, who claimed a beast with a man's face, big eyes, and thin features began following him. As the possession intensified, investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were called in and they brought cameras. The photos captured during the lesser exorcisms are genuinely disturbing. They show David's face contorting into a mask of pure malice. In one specific photo, a dark shadowy mass appears to be detaching itself from the boy's chest. The devil allegedly told David that he would take his soul, but Arn Johnson, the boy's sister's boyfriend, intervened, yelling for the demon to take him instead. Months later, Arn took the life of his landlord, Alan Bono, claiming that he had no memory of the event and was under the control of the entity. The court rejected the devil made me do it defense, but the photographic evidence remains some of the most analyzed in history. A warehouse worker in a receiving department thought it was just another busy day until a man with solid black eyes looked at him and confessed to a crime. Documented in a detailed account on the R Paranormal community on Reddit and verified by witness descriptions, a warehouse worker described an encounter with an individual that left a 76-year-old coworker hysterical. The witness, who was handling shipments, encountered a man whose eyes were pitch black. No color, no emotion, just soulless. The elderly coworker began screaming that the man was evil and not human. The man looked at the worker and reportedly said, "You know I've killed before and I'm going to do it again," in a tone described as unlike anything that he's ever heard before. Security later tried to pull the license plate from the man's truck but found that there wasn't one registered to his name. This case is frequently cited as a modern encounter with the black-eyed person phenomenon, which many associate with being demonic. A security monitor in a hospital wing captured an image so terrifying it caused the nursing staff to refuse to enter the room, and even decades later, nobody can explain what stood over that patient. This is perhaps one of the most famous and controversial demonic images ever captured on a surveillance system. The story began when a nurse at an undisclosed hospital noticed something impossible on the CCTV feed of a patient's room. In the grainy black and white still, a dark hunched figure is clearly visible standing direct on top of the patient's bed. The entity doesn't look human, it has elongated spindly limbs and its legs appear to be jointed like those of a goat or a large bird, a classic silhouette often associated with the devil. According to the original report, the patient passed away within hours of this figure appearing on the screen. Skeptics have tried to debunk this for years, suggesting that it's a forced perspective trick involving a trash can or a visitor's coat, but hospital staff who were there that night insisted that the figure moved across the monitor in a way that defied explanation. The image remains a cornerstone of paranormal study because of the sheer anatomical wrongness of the entity.
Number 5. TikTok doctor. Once, a man who was pronounced dead by his doctor after being injured said that rather than seeing a bright light and the feeling of coming home, he instead saw hell itself and met the devil. A doctor took to TikTok to explain that he encountered a young man in his early 20s who'd been stabbed in the heart after being involved in a deal that went wrong. Not willing to let the man die, medical staff took the victim into surgery, kept him from losing too much blood, and treated the wound in his heart. The doctor remembers the man waking up 4 hours later and crying, claiming that he went straight down to hell and looked straight in the eyes of the devil. The man said he could see the doctors working to save his life, and having never prayed before, gave it a try, at which point an angel pulled him back up out of hell. Remembering how clear the man had been, the doctor said it was the most amazing experience because he was legit. I mean, nobody makes up an experience like that. The last I heard, he's completely changed his life, he gave his life to God, and I still to this day, the look in his eyes when he woke up, the terror, I'm absolutely convinced he did meet the devil. Number 4. Working for the devil. Gilles de Rais was originally hailed a hero of France for his role in the 100 Years' War, a time during which he served as a comrade in arms to Joan of Arc, but the nobleman Gilles de Rais lived a secret, gruesome second life where he enjoyed ending the lives of people who couldn't defend themselves. In September 1440, de Rais was arrested after an almost decade-long spree in which he may have ended the lives of over 140 victims. During his trial, both de Rais and several of his servants/accomplices confessed to their evil deeds. Besides ending people's lives, he also admitted to engaging in Satanism by reportedly summoning the devil and his demonic minions. While the nobleman refused to sell his soul, he offered the blood and organs of his victims in exchange for knowledge and power over the dark arts. Number 3. God wanted her to see hell. Josefa Menendez was a young Spanish sister who had a short religious life of great suffering and experienced many revelations throughout her life. More than once she was taken to hell to witness and feel the suffering firsthand. Sister Josefa was reluctant to write on the subject of hell, and did so only to conform to her Lord's wishes. She wrote about her experiences in her journal, and she described it as the greatest torment of hell, namely the soul's inability to love. She wrote, "One of these damned souls cried out, 'This is my torture, that I want to love and cannot. There is nothing left me but hatred and despair. If one of us could so much as make a single act of love, but we cannot, we live on hatred." As mentioned, she went to hell multiple times, but one time she saw the devil. She wrote, "Souls were crying out and the devil answered, 'Insinuate yourselves by including carelessness in them, but keep in the background so that you are not found out. Tempt these others into ambition, into self-interest, to acquiring wealth without working, whether it be lawful or not." That entry was from February 3rd, 1923. She visited hell many times after that, but didn't report on seeing the devil again. And that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 2. In a coma. Will Carroll is a drummer who has been in the band Death Angel since 2009 and has provided the drum tracks for their last 4 studio albums. After spending nearly 2 weeks in a coma fighting Will revealed that during his battle with the virus, he saw the afterlife, where he would be sent to hell and meet Satan. The illness left him in a critical state where he was put on a ventilator while lying unconscious in a California Pacific Medical Center hospital bed for 12 days before recovering. He said that the devil would punish him for the deadly sin of sloth. The musician said Satan would transform him into a creature similar to that of Star Wars' Jabba the Hutt, and that he would vomit blood until he ultimately had a heart attack. Will told the San Francisco Chronicle that what he went through allowed him to change some of his typical lifestyle habits, including his once heavy alcohol and illegal substance use. I'm also going to listen to satanic metal though, he joked, but he later admitted that after beating COVID-19, he doesn't think Satan's quite as cool as he used to. And coming up at number 1, The Devil Made Me Do It. Sound familiar? It's because the third Conjuring movie has the same title. This film is inspired by the real events that took place with Arnie Johnson. Ed and Lorraine Warren were helping exorcise a possessed boy named David Glatzel in the early 80s. David's family had seen him being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that red marks had appeared on his neck afterwards. David had started to growl, hiss, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible as well. They did many exorcisms on David, and Lorraine said that David levitated, ceased breathing for a time, and even demonstrated the supernatural ability of precognition. During his exorcisms, there was also a rocking chair in the room that would allegedly rock on its own, levitate, and even vanish and reappear. David and Lorraine also claimed to have seen the devil sitting in it. Arnie then coerced one of the demons to possess him while participating in one of David's exorcisms. Afterwards, Arnie's personality changed. He would fall into a trance-like state where he would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. Then one day, his and his girlfriend's Debbie's landlord was drunk and misbehaving, so Ernie ended his life. The day after the incident, Lorraine Warren informed the Brookfield police that Ernie was possessed when the crime was committed. The case then went on to trial where Ernie's defense was demonic possession and the devil made me do it. The jury deliberated for 15 hours over 3 days before convicting Ernie of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison, though he only served 5.
An entire town once called the Perch of the Devil is now the subject of a massive paranormal investigation to find the entity that haunts its minds. Butte, Montana was once the richest hill on Earth, but it came with a dark price. In 2024 and 2025, investigators returned to the Perch of the Devil to document that malevolent force that has supposedly claimed lives in the Orphan Girl mine. Local legend says that a portal to the lower realms was opened during a mining disaster in the 1800s, and during a recent investigation using thermal imaging, a team captured a heat signature that defied logic. In a room that was a steady 50 degrees Fahrenheit, a hotspot shaped like a massive winged humanoid appeared on the wall. As the team approached, the figure moved independently of any light source. Even more terrifying was the audio captured, a deep, gravelly voice that didn't sound human, whispering the names of the investigators. Many locals believe the Devil of the Butte isn't a ghost, but an elemental demon that was disturbed by the mining and has remained to guard the perch ever since. A game of Ouija in Poland turned into a living nightmare when a woman's transformation was caught on a smartphone camera. In 2025, the History Channel's The Proof Is Out There analyzed a piece of footage that has left even the most hardened skeptics feeling uneasy. A group of young adults in Poland were filming a spirit board session in an abandoned cellar. As they asked for the entity's name, the board reportedly spelled out Lucifer. Immediately, one woman in the group began to undergo a physical transformation. The smartphone footage, which was authenticated for the show, shows her body contorting, her back arching at an angle that should have snapped her spine. Her voice suddenly drops several octaves, and she begins speaking in a fluent ancient dialect of Latin. Exorcists who reviewed the tape noted that xenoglossy, the ability to speak unlearned languages, is one of the primary signs of true diabolical possession. The most chilling part? When they slowed the footage down, her pupils appeared to change shape in vertical slits similar to those of a reptile. Known as the Devil of Champawat, this entity took over 400 lives and left a trail of terror that was only recently documented with modern visual recreations. Sometimes the devil doesn't appear as a spirit, but as a devourer. In Champawat, India, a Bengal tigress became known as the devil incarnate after taking 436 human lives, the most by any single animal in recorded history. While she was eventually taken down by Jim Corbett, the legend of her being a shaitan or devil has persisted. In 2025, new archival footage and digital recreations of the hunt were released, showing the sheer size and unnatural behavior of the beast. Locals at the time claimed that she didn't act like a tiger. She would disappear into thin air and smile at her victims. They believed a demon had inhabited the animal to punish the region. The footage of the actual locations, coupled with the chilling historical accounts, show how the devil can manifest as a physical nightmare that paralyzed an entire nation for years. When a filmmaker set out to disprove a local legend mansion in Pennsylvania, he captured a terrifying, tall, dark figure on a hidden camera that many believe is a modern-day manifestation of a demonic entity. One of the most intensely debated pieces of caught-on-camera footage in recent years comes from the Blackwell ghost stories. Filmmaker Justin Stevens began documenting a series of unexplained occurrences in a home where a violent event had previously taken place. In the footage, which has been analyzed by millions, a tall, shadowy figure with elongated limbs and a distorted non-human face is seen standing in a doorway. Unlike typical ghost footage, this entity has a physical presence that blocks out light and interacts with the environment, moving heavy furniture and even doors. The footage is so clear that many viewers claim that it isn't a ghost at all, but a demonic mimic. This case became a viral sensation because the filmmaker provided the raw, unedited CCTV files for public scrutiny. To this day, experts are divided on whether this is the most elaborate hoax in internet history or a genuine look at a dark entity that has attached itself to a physical location. This isn't a movie, this is a 2025 recording of a prophetic intercessor whose hidden darkness was exposed in a way that left thousands of viewers in shock. Our number one spot is a modern day record of an encounter with what ministers call a high-level principality. In late 2025, the Supernatural Life released footage of a deliverance session involving a woman who had been a devoted member of her community. During a prayer session, her personality completely fractured. The footage is raw and unedited, and it shows the woman developing superhuman strength, requiring 4 grown men to hold her down. Her skin begins to flush a deep purple, and she begins naming sins of the people in the room that she couldn't possibly have known, a common trait of the demonic known as knowledge of the hidden. The ministers claim that they were speaking directly to a lieutenant of the devil. The session lasted for hours, and the footage has become a lightning rod for debate. Whether you believe in the spiritual or not, seeing the devil manifest through a person you know and love is perhaps the most terrifying encounter of all. From the suburbs of Texas to the deep mines of Montana, these sightings remind us that there is still so much about our world and the spiritual realm that we don't fully understand. Are these captures proof of the devil, or are they just shadows and masks? One thing is for certain, for the people who were behind the camera, the terror was very, very real.
Did someone capture a shadow person on camera lurking over their bed? This video comes from Carrie E on YouTube, who noticed something terrifying on her home smart camera. Clearly, there's this dark black shape standing in the corner of the room. And, at first I didn't really think much of this. I mean, it's not hard to put on some dark clothes and lurk in a corner, but then it moves, and that's when you notice just how unnatural this thing really is. It zips across the room so fast, and in such a smooth, unnatural motion. This is clearly not a person. On top of that, watch how blurry it becomes. It doesn't look like a solid mass anymore. If you've ever had sleep paralysis and felt like something was standing over you or sitting on your chest and restricting your breathing, well, this video probably ain't gonna help you sleep any better, so sorry about that. Did you ever have an imaginary friend growing up? Do you have pleasant memories of said imaginary friend? Well, this next story may make you look back on your childhood a little differently. This photo here was shared online years ago. It looks pretty innocuous, 2 kids playing, but the thing is, there was only one youngster present at the time. At least that's what the parents thought. They were watching their son playing in the living room, saying he was talking with his imaginary friend Pauline. Dad snapped a picture, and when they looked back at it, they nearly screamed. Something else was clearly in the room, at least the camera picked something up. And the closer you look at this mysterious figure, the creepier it becomes. The eyes, the smile. Not only does it look unnatural, it has this air of aggression about it. Pretty creepy photo. So this happened back in January in Texas, just outside of Dallas. 2 homeowners were left terrified after someone showed up at their house wearing a red satanic mask and holding a cardboard sign that said Revelation 21:15. If you know that Bible passage, it's all about the apocalypse, judgment day, that kind of thing. So the devil mask is bad enough, but it's really not the message you want showing up right on your front porch. The whole thing was caught on their doorbell camera. It happened around 8 p.m. on a Saturday. You could see the person dressed in all black standing there a few feet from the door, completely still. They ring the doorbell, wait a few seconds, then knock, and when no one answers, they just walk around the side of the house and stand there in the driveway, still holding the sign. The homeowners were not home at the time. They'd gone out to dinner, but they saw the footage later and they freaked out. "I'm scared," the homeowner told CBS. I'm scared to leave the house. I'm scared to be at the house. She also said, it's about the end times. It's about Judgment Day. I freaked out. Police looked into it and said the masked person hadn't been seen at any other homes in the area and technically didn't commit a crime. Still, they said they'd keep an eye on the neighborhood just in case. And a little message to viewers here. Probably not the best idea to knock on some random person's door wearing a devil mask in Texas. Yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, just what kind of animal are we looking at here? According to the uploader, it wasn't an animal. At least, not one he'd ever seen. Reddit user Corrine James posted the image along with a description reading, EMT friend saw this 2 nights ago, turning his ambulance around at the end of a rural road. It was swaying and its eyes were glowing without the headlights. This was in central Kentucky. Now, interesting thing about Kentucky, it's the home of the Pope Lick monster, aka Goatman. So, a terrifying part man, part goat hybrid with glowing red eyes. I don't know, am I drawing the wrong connections here? Am I crying? I don't know, but what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Alright, so this video comes from a TikToker named Anelli_RG. Her actual name is Mariana. She took the footage at her church in Mexico. According to her, she always felt a strange, unsettling vibe whenever she was there. Nothing specific she could point to, just a general sense that something wasn't right. So one day she decided to record during Mass to see if she could capture anything unusual on camera, and she did. When she reviewed the footage, she noticed someone or something that she doesn't remember seeing in person at all. It stands out immediately. In her description, she said it wasn't a human, and honestly, it's hard to disagree. The figure looks pale with dark, almost hollow eyes, almost like some lifeless mask. It's not just a case of bad camera quality either. Everyone else in the shot looks completely normal. So what's going on with this ghoulish looking figure?
Brian Dalton. Some people think that demons and possession usually happens at a crossroads or maybe even with a Ouija board, but this is the 21st century. Jason Brian Dalton blamed it on his phone. He was an Uber driver, and on the evening of February 20th, he used a weapon to take the lives of multiple people. Dalton said that when he opened up the Uber app, he was presented with the symbol of the Eastern Star, which represents God on Earth. But apparently it wasn't God communicating with him through the phone, as he says that an image of the devil's head appeared on his screen, which he describes as looking like a cow with horns. He said that from that night, he could barely remember anything, except that the devil would apparently tell him where to go and whose lives to take, saying that it was like the devil completely took over his body and mind. Then when police apprehended him, he said that the screen on his phone went from black to red, and that the devil was no longer in control after that point. Number 9. Arnie Johnson. It's impossible to go through any discussion about this topic without talking about this one specific case, and I'm sure you were all expecting to hear it, so let's get it out of the way. In 1981, a man named Arnie Johnson killed his landlord, and the events went on to inspire the movie The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. Before the night of the crime, Arnie's fiance's brother appeared to become possessed by the devil, speaking in strange languages and his eyes turning black, among other things. As time went on, Arnie would start taunting the demon, telling him to leave the brother alone and take him instead. He then went to investigate a spooky well and supposedly saw a demon, who took over his body and committed the crime. When he went on trial, his team pleaded not guilty by reason of demonic possession. A pretty bold move. Of course, the judge didn't accept this, and Arnie was sentenced, only ending up serving about 5 years before he was released and married his fiancée. Number 8.
Number 3, the Picatrix. This is a grimoire that is said to contain a large amount of magic that is presumed to be from the 11th century. The pages contain some philosophy, some astrology, some medieval science, stuff like that. And then there's things like recipes that involve mixing human and or animal blood. So it's one of those. Not so fun, and yeah, it's not so fun. Not a lot of pictures to color in, you know? The results are said to be magical, of course, but in reality it's just a book on mixing horrible things together, like illicit substances and urine. Mix them together, put them in a cauldron. I'm like, no. How about that? Number 2, Sorrows of Young Werther. This is a book that came out in 1774 and it's said to have a large and negative impact on its readers right since its release. The book will summon your own inner demon, apparently. Right after this book came out, a huge wave of its readers ended up taking their own lives because of this strange and dark influence that this book had on those who read it. Young men would start trying to emulate the main character of the book by dressing like him, acting like him, that sort of thing. Not really shocking here. But the book ultimately led to horrifying actions, so in real life these guys would also take their own lives. It was horrible. This actually led to the book being banned in some countries because, well, it's not worth the risk. See, things like this make me curious, of course, but I don't think I'd ever want to read something that depressing anyways, you know what I mean? Number 1. The Lesser Key of Solomon. This one is said to contain spells that are used for summoning over 72 different demons. And just to spice it up a little bit, to this day, no one is exactly sure who wrote it. Yeah, it's still anonymous back there, penning it up. Could have been one of the 72 demons, who knows? The Lesser Key of Solomon is made up of a few different texts from somewhere around the 17th century. This book is said to be cursed, so even having a copy of it will cause the owner to experience constant bad luck or have the worst luck of all by, passing away, biting the bullet. One person shared that the book violently just flew itself across the room at them, just like Interstellar. We just got a haunted bookshelf now to take care of. All because you bought a weird book at a garage sale. Know what I mean? While we aren't sure who wrote it, there are rumors or stories that suggest that it might have been King Solomon. It is said that perhaps he wrote it for his son and then asked him to bury it with him in his grave. When being prepared for burial, a group of Babylonian philosophers found said book, and this is when they were visited by an angel who told them to hide the book from the unworthy. Yeah, only the worthy can read this one. They then placed a spell on the book, which is meant to keep it away from getting into the wrong hands, and it's said to be how the book got its curse in the first place. So, if a friend lets you borrow Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, just ask them. Ask if it's cursed before,
10 is Caligula. Caligula's reign began in 37 AD, and for the first 6 months he was actually regarded as a fairly moderate and noble leader. Early on, he freed citizens who'd been unjustly imprisoned and got rid of stiff sales tax, which are both things that will get a good amount of people on your side. But somewhere around that 6-month mark, everything changed. And I mean everything. According to records, Caligula fell ill and was never the same again. Soon he became known as a tyrant, killing whomever he pleased for the fun of it, declared himself a living god, began harassing and having his way with any women he pleased, including his own sisters, whom he was also selling off to other men. Contemporaries wrote of his blatant disregard for humanity and his people, saying how he used money to fund his own personal estate rather than feed the starving. And according to one account, once at some games he was presiding, he was said to have ordered his guards to throw an entire section of the audience into the arena during the intermission to be eaten by the wild beasts because there were no prisoners to be used and he was bored. Could this sudden change in personality have been some sort of deal with the devil? I guess we'll never know. Coming in at number 9, Timur. Founder of the Timurid Empire in what is now a mixture of modern-day Afghanistan, Iraq, and Central Asia, Timur was an undefeated military commander who reigned from 1370 to 1405. Now, although he is regarded as one of the greatest military leaders in history, he was also incredibly brutal to his enemies. So depending on who it is you are talking to, there are a couple of different opinions on just how great of a guy he was. For example, in present-day Afghanistan, he ordered the construction of a tower made out of live men, each stacked on top of one another and cemented together with bricks and mortar. Another instance of brutality was when he ordered a rebellion be punished and 70,000 heads of the rebels were built up into a minaret. So you definitely did not want to be on his bad side, let's just say that. However, the part that has made some people wonder if he danced with the devil to acquire all that power came when his tomb was exhumed in 1941, and allegedly the phrase, "When I rise from the dead, the world shall tremble," was inscribed into his tomb. Additionally, inside the casket, another inscription read, "Whomever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I." Coming in at number 8, Countess Elizabeth Bathory. Born in 1560 into the Bathory family of Hungary, Elizabeth was a noblewoman who was a lot less noble than her title suggests. Famously nicknamed the Bloody Countess, Elizabeth, along with 4 of her servants, became a rather notorious figure after it was revealed she had been luring young virgin peasant women into her castle, promising them a job and a better life, before instead brutally harming them to their deaths. According to texts, her devious methods included sticking needles under their fingernails, covering girls in honey before unleashing bees on them, and biting off chunks of their flesh. But it was said no matter what, with each victim she always bathed in their blood. And while the actual number of victims is up for debate, there are some accounts that believe the number could have been as high as 600. Now, as far as her intentions behind the killings were concerned, in some circles it was rumored she was a vampire, while others believed she was hunting down those she suspected to be witches. But some think it was some kind of deal she made with the devil to stay young and beautiful forever. In the end, the craziest part of the whole ordeal was that she never really had to face the music for her crimes. She simply lived out the rest of her life on house arrest, roaming freely around her castle. Coming in at number 7, Vlad the Impaler. Born in 1431, Vlad was the son of Vlad Dracul, ruler of Wallachia, and became the leader himself in 1448 after being imprisoned by the Ottoman Empire. While many saw him as a hero, his unmatched cruelty and penchant for barbaric executions, often against his own people, contributed to his reputation as one of history's most cold-blooded leaders. Vlad was known to perform disembowelment, beheading, and even skinning or boiling his victims alive. Still, his preferred method was impalement, as his nickname hints at. After one famous military victory against the Ottoman Turks, Vlad supposedly had around 20,000 men impaled on the banks of the Danube. When the second wave of invaders arrived, they are said to have immediately retreated upon seeing the grotesque forest of corpses. According to some accounts, Vlad also enjoyed dining among the thousands of impaled bodies and would even dip his bread into the blood of his victims. Coming in at number 6, Dr. Sigmund Rascher. There were many evil scientists researching cruel experiments during World War II, and one of the worst doctors of the time was Dr. Sigmund Rascher. When he joined the army, he asked the leader if human subjects could be provided at his disposal, and by 1942, his wishes were granted. He began conducting experiments in pressure chambers where he would simulate a high altitude and then quickly alter the pressure to simulate the conditions of a pilot free falling with no oxygen. But he was most well known for his cruel freezing experiments on 300 prisoners, supposedly to figure out the best way to warm up soldiers who experienced hypothermia. To do so, he would either force his victims to remain outdoors, completely naked in freezing temperatures for up to 14 hours, or would place them in tanks of ice water for 3 hours, measuring their pulse and internal temperatures all the while. From there, he would warm up the victims, experimenting with a variety of different temperatures, including boiling water, often causing further harm. Along with his freezing experiments, Sigmund would administer polygol, a substance to aid blood clotting, and then shoot or amputate a limb on his victims to see the speed at which they would bleed out. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to imagine a deal with the devil in his case. Coming in at number 5, Warren Jeffs. Although now he's in prison serving a life sentence for his crimes, members of the FLDS still consider Jeffs the leader and prophet, believing he was wrongly convicted, which is insane if you know the backstory. So the FLDS, or Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is an extreme denomination of the Mormon Church that separates itself entirely from secular life. Their belief is that in order to get into the highest rank of heaven, you must have at least 3 wives. But realistically, the more you have, the better in their eyes. Now, there is a lot to unpack with this entire denomination. Honestly, I could write a whole video on it alone. But But essentially, under Warren Jeff's leadership, the FLDS came under fire as a hate group and a funnel for underage marriages. Prior to his arrest, it was believed that Warren had 87 wives, many of which were not of legal age to marry, and he was not the only one to be in a similar situation. Using the excuse that it was God's will, he routinely married off young teenage girls with very old men, and even created a temple to have his way with any girl he pleased. Ironically, while this was happening, he was sneaking off the commune to gamble, pay for sexual services, and romp around the secular world, living the life he preached was sinful, while committing actual sins in his own community.
Number 3. Alex Bedsoe. Alex Bedsoe saw the devil in 1973 when they were 10 years old. Apparently, the devil was arrested and in a jail cell, so Alex went with a man named Tater to see it. Tater had a beat-up truck, and he had claimed to have shaken the devil's hand. When Andy got there, he saw the cell windows, and only one cell had its lights on. He said, "I could only see the plaster ceiling, then a shadow moved across it. The shadow stopped, it was in the shape of a human head, except 2 small horns rose from it. Then, suddenly, the head was standing at the window, looking out into the night, looking, I was certain, right at me. I could only see it from the nose up, and because the light was behind it, I could make out no facial details. But the horn seemed to be jet black, and the hairless head was in fact a deep, dark red. The next day, people in the trailer park talked about nothing else. The county sheriff came to get him about 1 in the morning, but there wasn't nobody in the cell. Everybody figured it was some kind of joke played by the pastor. I never asked about that night, and as I grew older, I accepted that the suggestion hovering in the hot summer air had worked on my child's brain and conjured what I thought I'd seen, except for one thing. About a week afterwards, Hader started driving around in a new truck. I mean brand new, a 1975 Chevy Blazer with 4-wheel drive and a camper shell. Lots of people asked where he'd gotten the money for it, since otherwise his lifestyle didn't change. For me, the source of the new truck was plain as day, and the proof, it was painted red. Devil red. Number 2. Jennifer Perez. This is the testimony of a 15-year-old girl who was brought up in a Christian home. She strayed from that path, got into drugs, died, and was sent to hell. Fortunately, she was given a second chance, but this is her story. She was in the hospital and her spirit woke up, but her body didn't. As a spirit, 2 men dressed in red approached her and told her to come with them. She then went to heaven and saw the Lord and 2 angels, Gabriel and Michael. She and Gabriel went through a black door, and it was dark and they were falling. The farther they fell, the hotter it was, and it smelled like sulfur. She was in hell, and she was seeing people being tortured by various demons. The cries and torture scared her. She then saw a massive red creature in the middle of it all that was just watching everything. She assumed that was the devil, and it terrified her. She then ascended back to heaven and was asked for a second chance. She then woke up in the hospital, alive, and devoted her life to God. And coming in at number 1 is Sister Josefa Mendez. This young Spanish sister, who had a short religious life of great suffering, experienced revelations throughout much of her life. More than once, she was taken to hell to witness and feel the suffering firsthand. Sister Josefa was reluctant to write on the subject of hell, and did so only to conform to her Lord's wishes. She wrote about her experiences in her journal. Sister Josefa described it as the greatest torment of hell, namely was the soul's inability to love. She wrote, "One of these damned souls cried out, 'This is my torture, that I want to love and cannot. There's nothing left in me but hatred and despair. If one of us could so much as make a single act of love, but we cannot, we live on hatred." As mentioned, she went to hell multiple times, but one time she saw the devil. She wrote, "Souls were crying out and the devil answered. Insinuate yourselves by inducing carelessness in them, but keep in the background so that you are not found out. Tempt these others with ambition, to self-interest, to acquiring wealth without working, whether it be lawful or not." That entry was from February 3rd, 1923. She visited hell many times after that, but didn't report on seeing the devil again.
What would you do if you were working overnight security and saw this person show up on your surveillance camera? I say person, but I mean, look at her, it looks more like a zombie to me. So, a school in Mexico, this security guard was on an overnight shift when he looked at the surveillance camera by the entrance of the building and saw this unsettling looking person staring up at the camera trying to get inside. The glowing eyes, the unusually long looking arms, this is not what I would want to see trying to break into my workplace in the middle of the night. Again, I'd think a zombie invasion was breaking out. This image was posted to Reddit by Dystopia321, who wrote, "This is a camera set up in the woods. Set up to take photos when it senses movement. Main purpose is to take photos of deer and other wildlife. There were no people that could be in the woods at the time, and it had to have been moving to set off the camera. What is this?" Well, I can't say exactly what it is, but I can say it doesn't look good. A rake, a skinwalker, Wendigo, golem. All possible identities mentioned in the comments, and I don't know, those seem like good guesses to me. What a horrifying looking creature. Could it be some extra tall, thin, pale person skulking through the forest alone in the middle of the night? Sure, but that's not really a comforting thought either, is it? What do you all think of this one? This one legitimately gave me chills, because it took me a few seconds staring at the image before I saw it, but when I did, yeah, just no thank you. Reddit user OrangeFood87 shared the picture saying that back in 2012, their roommate received the image from her boyfriend. He was working at a body shop after hours and snapped a photo of this totaled car that had just been brought into the shop. He was alone at the time and didn't see the eerie figure until he looked back at the photo. Apparently, he closed up early that night, and I can't say I blame him. This picture was taken at the South Pittsburgh Hospital by Reddit user JustOkayAtLife, who wrote, "Taken in the second-story shadow hall where they report a 7-foot-tall shadow figure. This was taken at the end of the night. There was one other guy with me, and he was in front of me to the left. He had the flashlight, so there's no way this shadow was either of ours. If you have a chance and you happen to be in Tennessee, I highly recommend visiting this place. Earlier in the night, I was walking down a dark hallway alone on the first floor, and from the left side of me, there was a doorway where I heard a hissing sound shoot out of one of the rooms, moving towards me. It was an incredible experience. Incredible experience, that's one way of putting it. Our final clip today comes from Saudi Arabia. YouTuber Adventures Jassim79 was doing what he does best, exploring a creepy abandoned place. This time he was walking through an old rundown house, and when he got to the roof, he caught something incredibly chilling on camera. As he passes by a clothesline, through a small opening between sheets, this ghoulish face with pure black eyes appears. Just as fast as it shows up though, it thankfully vanishes. Yeah, I'd be praying too if I saw that face poking out at me. Seeing as this is in Saudi Arabia, many viewers have commented that this could be more than just a ghost, but a jinn. Spirit-like beings from Muslim tradition that can be invisible, shapeshift, and sometimes exhibit a more classical kind of demonic behavior, tormenting people or in some cases even possessing them. Genuine or not though, it's a pretty creepy video.
Number 10. Codex Gigas. Right off the hop, this book is said to give the reader the ability to harness evil and negative energy, and it's often referred to as the Devil's Bible. Already into it, here we go folks. The book was first discovered in 1648 during the 30 Years' War. The Swedish army looted Prague, and amongst the haul was the Codex Gigas. Yeah, hard to miss this one. 36 inches tall, 20 inches wide, and 8.7 inches thick, coming in at 156 pounds. Yeah, it's a little thicker than Bernstein Bears. You're not gonna miss it. It's said that this book was actually written by a monk, but said monk had broken his spiritual vows. He was of course punished, but in a pretty extreme way, which is said to be sealed behind a wall and then left there for eternity to die. Just behind a wall forever. Right before his passing though, he realized he wouldn't be able to finish said book, which is then when he summoned Lucifer and asked him to complete the book for him because he was busy, you know, behind a wall and stuff. Yeah, like unemployed professors back then. The devil's like, I'll do that essay for you, no sweat, take a 5, brother, sell your soul, I got you, I'll script it. This book is filled with dark rituals, instructions on how to perform exorcisms, as well as a bunch of creepy drawings of the devil and other demons. Just for fun. Right now it's said that the book has 310 pages, but that once used to be 320. Those 10 pages that were ripped out were said to contain instructions on how someone could summon the devil. So hopefully whoever has those pages, burn them, or I don't know, made a nice birthday card with them. That'd be fun. Number 9, the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage. Little wordy in my opinion, but it's also a pretty good book. This book was of course created by Abramelin, who is in the title, who is indeed a mage, and he created this book as a gift for his son. Yeah, Lego wasn't a thing yet, and neither was fun, so he got him a magical book. Thanks, Dad. In the early 1900s, this book was translated into English, and that's when the rumors of the book being cursed began to spread, of course. I mean, this book contains spells, but also contains curses, so I feel like that rumor, it checks out, you know, people are talking for a reason. Abramelin believed that everybody had their own personal demon. The good thing about this book, however, is that it holds instructions on how to get your demons under control through rituals and spiritual situations. The kicker is that it's always risky to reach out to the spiritual world, so it's really not worth it, right? That's why everybody thinks this book is so cursed. Unless you absolutely know what you're doing, the contents of this book might just be too powerful for you, my friend. Those who have had bad experiences with the book explain either bad luck or hauntings from the spiritual world are waiting for those who read it. So yeah, stick with Arthur or Berenstain Bears, really keep it cool. Number 8, the Book of Black Magic and Pacts. At first I thought this said Black Magic and Pets, and I got really excited for a hot moment. This book, written by A.E. Waite, is a guide on all things occult. It looks at lore, magic, occultist history, and of course ceremonies. There's certainly no issue with all this in itself in a book, but when this book is in the wrong hands, things can get a little dicey, especially considering this book has been referred to as one of the greatest overviews of occultism, and it includes a large number of magical spells from a variety of sources. Yeah, they all have spells in them. They're all like Harry Potter. They're all like the Chamber of Secrets, that book that he stabs with the tooth. They're all like that. They're all bad. The author of this book, A.E. Waite, is said to have been a British scholarly mystic as well as a poet, and it's said that he was quite a prolific writer on both the occult and esoteric matters. Nice, but he was an occult or two, but he was great with a pen. Number 7, the Munich Manual. Also referred to as the Necromancer's Manual, that's always fun. This grimoire comes to us from the 15th century and is a text that is largely focused on demonology and necromancy. Two things you want in a book. A lot of grimoires have both good and black magic, but this is one that focuses solely on the dark, bad side, know what I mean? Just in case you're a very specific demon, this book is for you. You won't believe number 4. Dive in, here you go. There are 3 different sections to this one. First section deals with the illusionist magic and spells that trick people into seeing things that aren't there. The next one is psychological magic, which is meant to use emotions, politics, and things like that in order to gain power over an individual. And if these 2 weren't scary enough, the third section is the divinatory spells, which is meant to allow the reader to see into the past, present, or future. Imagine seeing into the present. What a waste that would be. You're just looking in a cauldron like, hey, that's me looking into the cauldron right now. It's like the game Portal, you're like, oh my god, it's crazy, it's so trippy. All sections are bad news in this book, but one of the most popular parts of said book is the part that includes instructions on how to make the Mirror of Lilith. We have our own Mirror of Lilith right here. I look into it every day. No spoilers, I'm only on season 27 of Life. Please don't tell me how I'm gonna pass. Thanks. Number 6, The Orphan Story. This book was originally written in the early 1600s, but it didn't end up getting published until 2018, because, you know, things take a while sometimes. We were a bit busy. The Orphan Story is about a 14-year-old Spanish boy who heads to the Americas, you know, a classic coming-of-age tale, a feel-good story, dare I say, until it isn't anymore. This is exactly the reason why it took so long for said book to be published. While the curse in this book doesn't come from the story itself, there's something that happens, there's something dark lurking in those pages, and people end up taking their own lives. It's horrible. The book's publisher, Belinda Palacios, who worked on the book for 2 years, explained that throughout those years, she was often warned of the cursed book and how every publisher who had tried to work on it before ended up passing away in a mysterious, tragic kind of way before they could finish the book. You know what I mean? Some Final Destination stuff would kind of happen here. Her research showed that those who tried to edit the book before either found themselves in horrible accidents or with strange illnesses, right? One of the two. Luckily, Belinda made it through the process unscathed for now, so let's just hope that maybe the curse has been lifted. Either way, I can't read, so I'm not gonna get there anytime soon.
Number 5, David Berkowitz. Throughout the 1970s, a man named David Berkowitz terrorized New York City. After already becoming a serial arsonist, he apparently started to hear the voices of demons in his head telling him to commit crimes. When he moved to a new home, he started to believe that his neighbors and their dogs were possessed by demons. And when he moved to a new apartment in the same area, his neighbor was a retiree named Sam, who he believed was a powerful demon. Sam's dog named Harvey was also apparently a demon, and Berkowitz believed that the dog was telling him to kill. His neighbor's name of Sam is also how he got his later name, which was Son of Sam. Soon after, people were turning up dead and police were trying to figure out who it was. During a break from the crimes, Berkowitz wrote a note to the New York Post that said, "I am still here like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest. He was eventually caught for the crimes and received a whopping 365 years in prison, where he apparently became a born-again Christian. Number 4.
Mr. Alguin. Ethan Alguin posted online a story that he was told. The story goes, "My grandpa believes he saw the devil. When my dad was a kid, my grandpa used to work at a graveyard. He would get up as it was dark, and within a few hours of working, the sun would come up. One morning, he did what he always had done and got ready for work. As he was walking there, he saw a man in a suit just walking slowly down the street. My grandpa told him something along the lines of, 'May the Lord give you a good morning,' and the guy ignored him and kept walking. My grandpa just ignored it and went to the graveyard as he always had and proceeded to work. After a few hours of work, the sun hadn't started rising yet, and he realized how early he actually woke up, so he went back home. He told my grandma about the guy, and she believes it was something called El Catrin. Apparently, sometimes the devil appears as a very well-dressed person that they refer to as El Catrin. Creepy. Number 9. Johann Georg Forst. This 16th century German astrologer and alchemist was an intelligent and successful man, but this wasn't enough for him. He wanted supreme power and knowledge, so he called upon the devil to provide him with it in return for his soul. For 16 years, he enjoyed his newfound power before he attempted to back out of the agreement. However, the devil convinced him to renew the pact, knowing that upon his death, Johann's soul would reside for eternity in hell. After 24 long years, the devil announced to Johann that his death was approaching. A huge explosion was heard from Johann's room that night, which was believed to be the act of Satan reclaiming his soul. The only thing remaining from the eruption was bits and pieces of Johann's body. Number 8. Sarah Good. Sarah Good was one of the first 3 women to be accused of witchcraft in the Salem witch trials, which occurred in 1692 in Massachusetts. On March 25th, 1692, Sarah was tried for witchcraft. When she was brought in, the accusers immediately began to rock back and forth and moan, seemingly in response to Sarah's presence. Later in the trial, one of the accusers fell into a fit. Sarah denied the allegations against her, but another woman on trial admitted to being the devil's servant. She stated that a tall man dressed in all black came to them, demanding they sign their names in a great book. Although initially refusing, she eventually wrote her name after Sarah and another woman forced her to. When Sarah was allowed the chance to defend herself in front of the 12 jurors in the Salem Village Meeting House, she argued her innocence, proclaiming the other 2 as real witches. In the end, however, Sarah was convicted of witchcraft and sentenced to death. So, did she really see the devil, or was she innocent? Who knows? Number 7. North Berwick Witches. The North Berwick witch trials were in 1590, where a number of people from East Lothian, Scotland were accused of witchcraft. The trials ran for 2 years and implicated over 70 people. The witches allegedly held their covens on the Aled Kirk Green, part of the modern-day North Berwick Harbour area. One source for the events is a 1591 pamphlet news from Scotland. King James VI wrote a dissertation on witchcraft and necromancy titled Demonology in 1597. More than 100 suspected witches were arrested, and several confessed under torture to having met with the devil in the church at night and devoted themselves to doing evil, including poisoning the king and other members of his household and attempting to sink the king's ship. Number 6. Andy Berthrin. One day, Andy decided to make a deal with the devil, like someone does. He said, "My family loved God more than me, and I had a teenage reaction and decided to go my own way. I thought I'd make an actual pact with the devil, and the pact went along the lines of, you give me this, and I'll give you my life." He took me at my word, and it was a very conscious decision that I will always regret. Eventually, Andy restored his faith in Christianity, but while Andy acknowledges Jesus' power is not even comparable to Satan's, he says, the devil was not going to let him go easily. He was attacked spiritually, but not just verbally, but physically as well. He said, "There were images and voices. I spent night after night praying against apparitions and stuff all around me all the time. It's a reality. Some people still won't believe it happens, but it does. I clearly remember an elder suggesting I go and pray and read my Bible. I picked up my Bible and it was like someone stabbed me in the eye, and it burned so much until I put the Bible down, then it would stop." Number 5. Father Gabriel Amorth. In 1997, Father Gabriel Amorth conducted his exorcisms in Rome, and he asked for the help of Jesus, and the young man he was dealing with began to curse and spit and started using English instead of his native Italian. Screaming and howling, the demon burst forth and looked straight at him, drooling saliva from the young man's mouth. Father Gabriel said he returned fire with prayers and other ritual recitations, demanding that the demon reveal its name. He said, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day, and the hour of your damnation." The man fixed him with a glare, snarled, and said, "I am Lucifer." Father Gabriel was shocked. He did not expect to receive such a terrifying response. He mostly used prayer as his weapon, reciting verses of libertation from the Roman rite of exorcism. As Father Gabriel continually commanded the demon to leave its host, it eventually left. But my goodness, that sounds absolutely horrifying. Number 4. The circus. In the story, this man's father told his son about the day he met the devil. It took place in Juarez, Mexico in the year 1942 when his father was 20 years old. The circus had arrived in town, and the man's father and his younger brother went to check it out, and they ran into a short, stubby man wearing a dinner jacket. This stranger introduced himself and said he auditioned for a job at the circus, but the owner turned him down because his act was so frightening that the owner accused him of being the devil. They asked if they could see the trick, and he said yes, but they would have to come to the trailer where he lives. They went to the stranger's place, and he put on a cape and a white glove on his right hand. He started running his left hand over, under, and around his gloved right hand, all while closing and opening his right hand and wiggling his fingers. The stranger then started chanting some strange words in another language. Then he grabbed the tip of the white glove and removed his glove. His hand was gone. It was all bones from his skeleton. The brothers ran out scared, and the stranger stood at the top of the steps, just smiling. Then on the ground was a wooden plank with long nails pointing up. The stranger jumped off the steps and landed right on those nails. They went right through his shoes and blood started to flow. The man's father stood there transfixed as the stranger started to laugh again while pointing at the man's father with his bony finger. They ran away again, and the man's father knew that it was the devil, and they were grateful to be able to escape.
Number 4, the Ripper Crew. The Ripper Crew was a notorious satanic cult active in Chicago during the 80s, comprising of 4 members: Robert Gett, Edward Spreitzer, and brothers Andrew and Thomas Cocoreles. They carried out a series of heinous crimes, abducting and taking the lives of several women in the area. They followed this twisted version of Satanism, using it as a justification for their violent acts. Their leader, Robin Gett, allegedly believed that offering human sacrifices to Satan, he would then gain supernatural powers and protection. The Ripper Crew targeted young women. They abducted their victims, subjected them to brutal torment, and then took their lives as part of their ritualistic practices. In '82, the police arrested Robin Gett. During his interrogation, he confessed to several crimes and provided information about the cult's activities, and this led to the arrest and conviction of the other members, including Edward Spreitzer and the Cocoreles brothers. But it's essential to I want to say, their actions aren't really representative of mainstream Satanism. I think that this goes for everyone on this list. In real life, Satanism really is not about promoting violence. Anyway, in '83, Robin Gett was sentenced to 120 years in prison. Edward Spreitzer and Andrew Cocoreles were sentenced to death, with Spreitzer later receiving a life sentence after Illinois temporarily banned the death penalty, and Thomas Cocoreles was actually released from prison in 2019 for some reason. Next on the list, we have Krista Pike. In January 1995, Krista Gale Pike, who was 18 at the time, along with 2 accomplices, Shadola Peterson and Tadariel Shipp, Pike's boyfriend, were involved in a gruesome incident that claimed the life of classmate Colleen Slemmer. Pike had a disturbing interest in Satanism and the occult, and carried out the act in a particularly disturbing manner. So it all started when Slemmer seemed to be talking to her boyfriend a little too much for Krista's liking, so she formed a plan with Shipp and Peterson to take Slemmer out of the picture. The trio lured Slemmer her to a vacant steam plant where they violently attacked her. They beat her for 30 minutes, cut her up, even carved a pentagram into her chest. In 1996, Krista Pike was convicted of her role in the event, and despite her young age, was sentenced to death. She's currently still on death row. Number 2, Richard Ramirez, or as he became known, the Night Stalker, one of the most notorious criminals in American history. Ramirez was heavily influenced by Satanism, and he often left satanic symbols at the scenes of his crimes. He was known to draw pentagrams on the walls and leave occult objects behind. Ramirez believed that he was protected by dark forces and that Satan guided his actions. During 84 and 85, Ramirez took the lives of at least 13 people in Southern California. His victims, ranging in age from 9 to 83, were subjected to brutal attacks, and in some cases, he would also burglarize the people's homes. He would also force many of his victims to profess their love for Satan. Unlike a lot of criminals of his kind who typically have a specific pattern to the types of people they'll victimize, Ramirez was more unpredictable. His victims were almost entirely random. Men, women, young, old, didn't matter to him. Now, the way this all ends is probably the most cathartic I've heard in any notorious criminal case like this. In 1985, Ramirez was chased down by residents in East Los Angeles after they recognized him from news coverage. An angry mob formed and Ramirez was just romped on until police showed up. It's like the ending of Frankenstein or something, only Ramirez actually deserved what he got. He was unarrested, tried, and convicted. He died in 2013 while on death row in San Quentin. Finally, we have Adolfo Constanzo. This guy was a cult leader, a drug trafficker, and he also practiced black magic. Man was just looking at the villain menu, was like, yep, I'll have that. I'll take that. Might as well check that off as well. He was the mastermind behind a criminal organization involved in drug trafficking, and he would take victims' lives in these spooky, dark rituals. He believed that performing human sacrifices would grant him supernatural powers and protect his drug trafficking operations. Cult members followed his twisted beliefs without question, basically the definition of a cult. The cult's rituals often involved human sacrifice. Victims were often abducted or lured and then died in ceremonies aimed at appeasing deities and spirits. Their bodies were dismembered and body parts were used in the rituals. In 1989, Constanzo's criminal activities began to unravel when Mexican authorities discovered the cult's headquarters in Matamoros, Mexico, and there they found evidence of the cult's rituals, including human remains and ritualistic artifacts. There's this big witches type cauldron with a dead black cat and a human brain inside of it. Doesn't seem real. Constanzo and 4 of his followers fled, but were eventually tracked down by the police, and Constanzo didn't want to be taken alive, and so he ordered one of his followers to shoot him, and that was the end of that.
And at number 10 is Herman the Recluse. The Codex Gigas was published in the early 13th century and is written by Herman the Recluse, a monk who broke his monastic vow and was sentenced to be walled up alive. Now, in order to try and escape his dire fate, he promised to write a book that would glorify the monastery forever, a book that contained the entire knowledge of the universe. Now, Herman the Recluse was given one try to complete the book, and if he hadn't finished it by dawn, the sentence would be executed. Realizing by midnight that the task was impossible, Herman turned to the devil, who helped him finish the book for the price of his soul. Now, this book is also referred to as the Devil's Bible due to a fully colored portrait of Satan taking up a whole page. And when I say whole page, I mean a full 36-inch page. Now, the page next to the illustration contains a full description of the kingdom of heaven, and some say that Satan's portrait is his own signature, and others believe that Herman drew the portrait himself as a thanks. 9. Oliver Cromwell. In 1651, on the eve of the Battle of Worcester, Oliver Cromwell allegedly met the devil in the woods. An alleged account by Colonel Lindsay, first captain of Oliver Cromwell's own regiment, described how he was taken with Oliver himself into the woods to meet a grave elderly man with a roll of parchment in his hand. This man filled Lindsay with an uncontrollable horror and trembling as he realized who this visitor really was. The aged unknown promised Oliver to have his will then and all things else for 7 years, at which date it would be his, the devil's, turn to complete mastery over Oliver's soul and body. According to the tale, Oliver had argued with the devil over the short span, expecting 21 years. After the bargain was made, Oliver was reputed and have cried out joyously to the colonel, "Now Lindsay, the battle is our own, I long to be engaged." And with remarkable precision, the leader of England's only experiment in Republican government died exactly 7 years later amid terrible storms in September 1658. Psychic. A user online detailed their experience they had with the devil. They said, "A few years ago, I joined a psychic development class. We would hold seances and communicate with dead relatives. I didn't realize that opening myself up to the spirit world would mean communication with dark forces as well as light. For a period of a few weeks, I'd been having strange dreams. I decided to finally hold a seance myself and see who was trying to get in touch with me, and that's when he showed up, Satan. We communicated telepathically for at least half an hour. He said a lot of things I wasn't expecting. He told me God had forsaken our planet, and that's why so many bad things were happening. He said he was disgusted with some of the things happening right now, war, poverty, etc., and was angry that God allowed it to happen. He actually said that he loved humanity and was misunderstood. He wasn't the devil the Bible was talking about. The strangest thing was his appearance. It was not frightening or demonic. To me, he appeared as a young man, no older than 20. He was what most women would consider handsome, around 5'7" and an average build, blonde brown hair and piercing blue-gray eyes. He showed little emotion and was quite factual in the way he spoke. He came across as intelligent, sophisticated, and wise. He had gigantic wings and was surrounded by bright light, almost a completely white aura that radiated out by a few feet. As he appeared, I could hear the most heavenly voices speaking and singing. He was able to mention and recite Bible verses I'd never even heard of or read. Above all else, he did not like to be referred to as the devil. He wants to be known as an archangel and believes that humanity seriously misunderstands him and the spirit world altogether. Number 7. Father Urbain Grandier. In 1632 in Leuton, France, a number of nuns accused Father Urbain Grandier, a Catholic priest, of bewitching them and sending a league of demons to commit vile acts with them. They even had the names of the demons. Now, a trial was quickly conducted by the church and the priest was questioned. During the trial, he was accused of having sexual relationships with many women, and then a document was produced in front of the judges, which was allegedly the contract that Urbain had made with the devil. It had not only the signature of Urbain, but also the signature of several demons, including the devil himself. The contract was written backwards in Latin and translated to the following: "We, the influential Lucifer, the young Satan, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Elmi, and Astaroth, together with others, have today accepted the covenant pact of Urbain Grandier, who is ours. And him do we promise the love of women, the flower of virgins, and respect of monarchs, honors, lusts, and powers. He will go whoring 3 days long. The carousel will be dear to him. He offers us once in the year a seal of blood. Under the feet he will trample the holy things of the church, and he will ask us many questions. With this pact, he will live 20 years happy on the earth of men, and will later join us to sin against God, bound in hell in the council of demons." Now, due to this, Father Urbain Grandier was later burned at the stake for charges of witchcraft. Number 6. Several meetings. When asked if anyone had ever met the devil, this online user said, "Yes, several times. Meeting and talking with him is not very pleasant. He has a very cold presence. He spoke always with a hint of disdain, like he was constantly mocking. I think I only saw him once where he was being candid, and then I'm probably wrong, and he only wanted me to think that. Either way, it was not my idea of fun to be sitting in the same room with a serious Satan. Now that I think back, I wonder if he puts up a comic front to try to get you to think that he isn't as grim as a person as he really is, using humor as an illusion for warmth. He is definitely a master of distraction and deception, and it can be confusing to talk with him, and I wouldn't recommend trying. Overall, it wasn't the happiest of circumstances I found myself in."
David Berkowitz, aka the son of Sam. One peculiar aspect of his case was his claim that his neighbor's dog was possessed and instructed him to commit violent acts. In the mid-1970s, Berkowitz carried out a string of shootings. He was eventually arrested arrested in 1977, and during the investigation, he admitted to the shootings and claimed that his neighbor's dog, a black Labrador retriever named Harvey, was possessed by a demon. According to Berkowitz, Harvey commanded him to take the lives of people. Berkowitz later asserted that he had started the fires in the Bronx, attributing this act to the dog's influence as well. In 1978, Berkowitz pleaded guilty to the crimes and was sentenced to 6 consecutive life sentences in prison. He later renounced his satanic beliefs and became involved in prison ministry, offering counseling and support to other inmates. And at number 9, we have Sean Sellers. He was a self-proclaimed Satanist who claimed to be possessed by a demon named Azaret. In 1985, at the age of 16, Sellers took the lives of his parents, Vonda and Paul, in their Oklahoma home. He later confessed to these acts, as well as having shot a convenience store clerk a year prior who refused to sell him beer. Sellers stated that his involvement in Satanism influenced his actions. According to Sellers, he believed he was possessed by the demon, which drove him to commit the violent acts. And Sellers was eventually arrested, tried, and convicted for the crimes. He was sentenced to death in 1986, and during his time on death row, he became a born-again Christian and renounced his previous involvement in Satanism, but despite his change in beliefs and multiple appeals, Sellers was executed by lethal injection in 1999. Next up is Manuela and Daniel Ruda, 2 lovers bound together by their passion for violence in the name of the Dark Lord. How romantic. Manuela and Daniel Ruda were a German couple involved in a highly disturbing incident in 2001. They were responsible for the death of Frank Hackert, and their reason for taking their friend's life? Well, according to the couple at the time, they thought he was so funny and would be the perfect court jester for Satan. The Rudas were deeply immersed in occult practices, spending time vacationing in England and Scotland, sleeping in graveyards, and going to devil-worshipping parties. The couple subjected Hackert to hours of violent rituals, which tragically led to his demise. After taking Hackert's life, they stuck his body in a coffin that they used as a coffee table. They attempted to dismember his body, but they were apprehended before they could dispose of the remains. They were actually caught in a gas station, and apparently they were brandishing chainsaws, like waiting for the authorities to arrive. Very insane. In 2002, they were both convicted of the crime, with Daniel receiving a prison sentence and Manuela being committed to a psychiatric institution because of her diminished mental state. She cut her ties with Daniel when he was in prison, though, and he landed himself in court once again years later when he apparently attempted to hire a hitman to take her out. True love at its finest. As insane as all this is, using a coffin for a coffee table, that is actually an awesome idea. I am taking note of that. Nikolai Ogolbiak. This next case happened in 2008 in Russia. It's pretty disturbing. Nikolai was a former choir boy turned Satanist and led a small cult of Satan worshippers. He and a few of his underlings lured 4 teenagers in the local goth scene into the woods, about 300 miles northeast of Moscow, where they forced them to drink alcohol before stabbing them 666 times each. After that, they ate parts of their victims' bodies. The group was arrested when various body parts were found in Nikolai's apartment complex. One member was quoted saying, "Satan will help me avoid responsibility. I made many sacrifices to him." Another said, "I tried to turn to God, but it didn't bring me any money. I prayed to Satan and things improved." It didn't improve that much because now you're in prison, but yeah. Number 6, the Beasts of Satan. The members of the Beasts of Satan were primarily young individuals in the metal scene in Soma, Lombardo, Italy. They shared an interest in Satanism and the occult, and they believed in ritualistic practices influenced by the darker aspects of satanic worship. One night in January of 1998, after hanging out at Midnight Pub listening to heavy metal music, 3 members, Andrea Volpe, Nicola Sapone, and Mario Muccione, lured 2 of their friends out into the woods and took their lives in a ritualistic sacrifice. They buried their bodies in the woods and then danced on their graves, chanting, "Now you're both zombies. Try to get out of this hole if you dare." Might have sounded catchier in Italian. The group got away with this initially. Authorities didn't look into the 2 teens' disappearances because they were a couple, and police were like, "Oh yeah, they probably ran off together." Great policing work. Then in 2004, the group's leader, Andre Volpe, took the life of his ex-girlfriend, believing she knew too much about the incident from 7 years prior. Then he and his buddy buried the body before taking a large amount of drugs, crashing their car into a tree. The two were arrested, and during interrogations, everything came out. Next on the list is Ricky Queso. In 1984, Ricky Queso, a teenager from Northport, New York, took the life of his friend Gary Lauwers. On June 16, 1984, Queso and a group of friends, who were all part of a group they called the Knights of the Black Circle, lured Lauwers to a remote wooded area. There, a confrontation ensued, during which Queso and his accomplices subjected Lauwers to a drawn-out beating. Queso apparently tried to force Lauwers into praising Satan. Lauwers refused, though, repeating that he loved his mother. The entire group was high on psychedelic drugs at the time. Queso would then brag about the incident to his friends days afterwards, claiming that Satan had appeared to him in the form of a black crow. When it cawed, he interpreted it as Satan giving his approval of the attack. This was at the height of the satanic panic in the US, and Queso's fascination with satanic rituals and the occult, and the fact that he was wearing an AC/DC t-shirt when he was arrested, it all became the focal point in the media coverage of the case. And shortly after the incident, Queso was arrested and charged in connection with Lauwers' demise. And before he could stand trial, though, he took his own life in his jail cell on July 7th of 84.
The violinist. It's been long said that successful artists have made a deal with the devil, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. An Italian violinist named Giuseppe Tartini claimed the devil appeared to him in a dream and played for him the most incredible piece of music he had ever heard. Here is how he described the experience. One night in the year 1713, I dreamed I had made a pact with the devil for my soul. Everything went as I wished. My new servant anticipated my every desire. Among other things, I gave him my violin to see if he could play. How great was my astonishment on hearing a sonata so wonderful and so beautiful, played with such great art and intelligence as I had ever even conceived in my boldest flights of fantasy. Upon waking, Giuseppe tried to recreate it, and that became his magnum opus, known as the Devil's Trill Sonata. Number 9. Exorcism gone wrong. In 1997, Father Gabriel Amorth conducted his exorcisms in Rome, and he asked for the help of Jesus, and the young man he was dealing with began to curse and spit, and started using English instead of his native Italian. Screaming and howling, the demon burst forth and looked straight at him, drooling saliva from the young man's mouth. Father Gabriel said he returned fire with prayers and other ritual recitations, demanding that the demon reveal its name. He said, "Unclean spirit, whoever you are and all your companions who possess this servant of God, I command you, tell me your name, the day and the hour of your damnation." The man fixed him with a glare, snarled, and said, "I am Lucifer." Father Gabriel was shocked. He did not expect to receive such a terrifying response. The father mostly used prayers as his weapon, reciting verses of liberation from the Roman rite of exorcism. As Father Gabriel continually commanded the demon to leave the host, it eventually left, but my goodness, that sounds absolutely terrifying. Number 8. Witch trials. Sarah Good was one of the first 3 women to be accused of witchcraft in the Salem witch trials, which occurred in 1692 in Massachusetts. On March 25, 1692, Sarah was tried for witchcraft, and when she was brought in, the accusers immediately began to rock back and forth and moan, seemingly in response to Sarah's presence. Later in the trial, one of the accusers fell into a fit. Now, Sarah denied the allegations against her, but another woman on trial admitted to being the devil's servant. She stated that a tall man dressed in all black came to them, demanding they sign their names in a great book. Although initially refusing, she eventually wrote her name after Sarah, and another woman forced her to. When Sarah was allowed the chance to defend herself in front of the 12 jurors in the Salem Village Meeting House, she argued her innocence, proclaiming that the other 2 were the real witches. In the end, however, Sarah was convicted of witchcraft and sentenced to death. So, did she really meet the devil, or was she innocent? Who knows? Number 7. Strayed from the path. This is the testimony of Jennifer Perez, who was brought up in a Christian home. She strayed from that path, got into drugs, died, and was sent to hell. Fortunately, she was given a second chance, but this is her story. She was in the hospital and her spirit woke up, but her body didn't. As a spirit, 2 men dressed in red approached her and told her to come with them. She went to heaven and saw the Lord and 2 angels, Gabriel and Michael. She and Gabriel went through a black door, and it was dark and they were falling. The farther they fell, the hotter it was, and she said it smelled like sulfur. They got to the bottom and she realized that she was in hell, seeing people being tortured by various demons. The cries and torture scared her, and then she saw a massive red creature in the middle of it all just watching everything. She assumed that this was the devil, and it terrified her. After this, she then ascended back to heaven and was asked for a second chance. She then woke up in the hospital, alive, and devoted the rest of her life to God. Number 6. Mom met the devil. A user on Reddit posted this story about the time their mother met the devil. They said, "My mom told me a story of when she met the devil. She was in high school, she had a friend who was dating an older man. He was probably 20 to 30 years older than her, and he gave her a necklace. Not wanting to get caught by her parents, she gave the necklace to my mom. She wore it, and that night when my mom slept, she dreamt of a man. Clean cut and handsome, but disturbingly evil. She said all she knew about the man was that he was pure evil. He came up to her face, eyes locked on her, stone cold and expressionless, reached for her neck and grabbed the necklace from her neck and twirled it in a circle in the air like a witch's pendant. She jolted awake and couldn't feel the necklace, and in a panic she looked all around for the necklace and found it under her pillow in a perfect spiral."
Coming in at number 4, Jim Jones. If you've ever heard of the term drinking the Kool-Aid, this man is why. Growing up, Jones's life was hard. His father was a disabled war vet in and out of hospital, and his mother was all around neglectful. So Jones was pretty much left to his own devices. Looking for a family, he began to develop a community at his local church, but sadly, it turned into a much darker obsession. He began to study and idealize fascist leaders and dreamed of becoming a preacher just like them. As an adult, he worked as a minister and began claiming to have psychic and healing powers until eventually he started his own religion, the People's. Sadly, he became drunk on power, and the next thing you know, he was calling himself a prophet and began hoarding the cult members' money for his own gain. By 1977, he immigrated the commune to Guyana and called it Jonestown, but a congressman named Ryan was onto him and went to investigate allegations of human rights abuse. The congressman ended up taking members from the cult who wanted to leave, but Jones did not take kindly to this and ordered his henchmen kill Ryan and his party. But after he got word that not everyone was taken out, he worried the military would come and shut down his entire operation. So he ordered all members take their own lives as an act of revolution. Tragically, all 909 members were forced to take their own life with a mix of Flavor Aid and cyanide, and those that didn't go down willingly were given an injection. Coming in at number 3, Idi Amin. Once the president of Uganda from 1971 to 1979, Idi Amin was and still is regarded as one of the most brutal despots in modern world history. Prior to his reign over the country, Amin was the commander of the Ugandan army, but as one might have guessed, he was not really following all the rules. In fact, the president at the time, Milton Obote, was actually planning to arrest Amin for misuse of army funding. However, somehow this news made its way back to Amin, and he hatched a plan to overthrow the elected government via a military coup and declare himself the president. Unfortunately, this plan worked. Under his malicious reign, his first order of business was to expel the entirety of the Asian population, which was roughly 80,000 people, many of whom were dual citizens. This complete intolerance and persecution of any and all ethnic groups continued under his dictatorship, along with rampant human rights abuses, political repression, and extrajudicial killing. In fact, it's estimated that nearly 300,000 civilians lost their lives in the mere 8 years he ruled over the country. Finally, in 1979, the Tanzanian president ordered his troops to capture him, which they did, ousting him from his power. But rather than face his charges, Amin went into exile in Saudi Arabia, where he remained until his death. Coming in at number 2, King Leopold II. The King of Belgium from 1865 to 1909. In Belgium, he is often referred to as the Builder King, as he commissioned a great number of buildings, urban projects, and public works. But But he also has another not so flattering title, the Butcher of Congo. You see, as was unfortunately all too common at the time, King Leopold, with the help of other colonial European nations, claimed Congo for himself and began extracting the natural resources for his own gain. Initially, he was after ivory, but soon he discovered it was ripe with rubber, and so he ordered the native population into forced labor to harvest and process it for him. Not only that, but if the quotas were not met by his slaves, he would hurt, kill, and even amputate the hands of anyone he pleased to send a message. Ironically, he never set foot in the Congo, yet he was responsible for an estimated 10 million deaths. Eventually, word got out of his atrocities after African-American politician and historian George Washington Williams visited the land and wrote an open letter describing the practices as crimes against humanity, and the outside pressure forced him to sell the land. And last up in our number 1 spot, Pol Pot. Leader of the notoriously cruel communist movement Khmer Rouge from 1975 to 1979, Pol Pot is among some of the most evil leaders in history. During his short but radical rule, the entire country was isolated from all foreign influences. This included closing schools, hospitals, factories, banks, and foreign agriculture, as they believed this would stimulate the rebirth of the country. But of course, all it did was send it into a desolate famine and poverty. The population was forcibly moved to the countryside, where they were ordered to work on collective farms, but with the economy collapsing, people in the country were starving. Still, they could not forage for food. In fact, anyone who disobeyed the orders were killed. Well, actually anyone who was educated or spoke an opposing thought was killed. And in just 4 years, nearly 2 million Cambodians of all ages perished, which was approximately 1/4 of the population. To give you just an idea of the kind of evil this man was capable of, one of the most disgusting practices that took place during his genocidal tyranny was what happened at the Chankiri trees in the killing fields. Innocent sons and daughters whose parents had been killed for a crime against the state were taken to the trees and executed so they could not, and I quote, grow up and take revenge for their parents' deaths. He truly was an evil, evil man.
5. Robert Johnson. Robert Johnson was an American blues musician from the early 20th century who, as legend has it, acquired his musical powers from a midnight deal with the devil. Born in 1911, Robert grew up alongside the Mississippi Delta. As a young man, he yearned for musical greatness and one night took his guitar to the crossroads in hopes of conjuring dark forces. The devil appeared and took Robert's guitar, played a few songs, and then handed it back, granting the young musician complete mastery of the instrument. The story thus explained Robert's extraordinary skill. It also led to rumors that Robert's drooping eye spoke of an infernal connection, and that he turned away from his audience while performing to hide the presence of evil. Now, Robert did very little to discourage these stories. If anything, he played into it with lyrics such as, "Early this morning when you knocked upon my door, and I said, 'Hello, Satan, I believe it's time to go.'" Now, in 1938, he died under mysterious circumstances at the age of 27. Some say he succumbed to syphilis, others poisoning, whereas others contended it was the devil himself collecting his due. 4. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa. In the 1500s, Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa was a scholar who devoted his life to writing about the occult. In his books, he mentioned the devil a lot and breaks down exactly how witches perform magic spells. You may be wondering how exactly he got all his information, and well, he claimed that when he was a young man, he gave in to the temptations of the devil and learned how to perform magic by following around groups of witches. He apparently then found Jesus and managed to save his own soul. He wrote his books in order to teach others to keep the devil at bay. During his lifetime, he published 8 huge books about the occult. Even though he was so public about being friends with the devil, he was never put to death for witchcraft. Perhaps he was seen as publishing such valuable information on how to battle the devil, they just wanted to keep him alive to learn more. While it would seem that he would have been promoting witch hunts in the church, he actually pushed for people to be more sympathetic and understanding. He wanted to try to help save them from the devil's grasp and have God save them through prayer, rather than burning them at the stake. Number 3. lifesaver. Another online user had this to say when it came to meeting the devil. It actually wasn't that scary, he actually saved my life. I was being attacked by a bunch of demons and he literally snapped his fingers and blew them up. I can't get him to go away now. Everywhere I look, he is there, but not in a threatening way. More like a guardian angel way. I prefer his brother Gabriel though because he is very funny. I'm not kidding. He is sitting next to me right now. I know it must seem like I'm crazy or something or just making fun of the question, but I'm not. I'm being dead serious. John Fian. John Fian was a doctor and school teacher who was declared as a notorious sorcerer. He confessed to having a compact with Satan during the North Berwick witch trials in Scotland, which he confessed to King James as the trial proceedings were taking place, but later promised that he would renounce his compact with Satan and vow to lead the life of a Christian. But the next morning, he confessed the devil came to him in his cell dressed all in black and holding a white wand, demanding John continue his faithful service, according to his first oath and promise that he made. John testified that he renounced Satan to his face, saying, "Get thee behind me, thou Satan, and start pushing, for I have listened too much to thee, and by the same thou hast undone me, in respect whereof I will utterly undo you." He confessed that the devil then answered, "That once ere thou die, thou shalt be mine." The devil afterwards broke the white wand and immediately vanished from his sight. John then was given a chance to lead the life he promised, but the same night he stole a key to his cell and escaped. He was eventually captured and tortured until his execution on January 27th, 1591. And coming in at number 1 is General Jonathan Moulton. General Jonathan Moulton was born in the month of July 1726 and was not always extraordinarily wealthy. In the year 1749, he married his first wife and had 11 children with her. He soon settled in Hampton, Virginia, and surprisingly got filthy rich in no time. His sudden accumulation of so much wealth in such a short amount of time came as a surprise to the poor neighborhood, and it was alleged that he had made deals with the devil. Locals alleged that he had made a contract with the devil in which the devil was supposed to give him a boot full of gold. But Jonathan tore open the sole of the boot so that the boot would never be full of gold. When the devil learned that he was being tricked, he took revenge on him in the strangest way possible that cemented the face that they made a deal. Upon his death at the age of 61 years, his body went missing from the coffin, and instead the coffin was filled with gold coins, having the seal of Satan himself. The locals buried the gold-filled coffin anyway. His body was never found, and no grave mark was put in its place.